Smiling Friends makes me laugh a lot. With its wacky animation, edgy humor, and its colourful cast of characters, it creates a viewing experience like no other. The reason I think it's been so resonant with its audience is how it tells jokes. It makes references you likely won't catch, it sets up jokes with no context to pay off later, and the animation is filled with blink and you'll miss it background gags that force you to lock in. While only being 11 minutes long, Smiling Friends has enough depth to reward multiple rewatches and encourages engagement with Easter eggs hidden in the shots. For context, Smiling Friends is an American-Australian animated sitcom created by and starring Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel. The show revolves around Pim and Charlie, a couple of ordinary dudes who work for the Smiling Friends company. Their job is to go out and make people. Despite the optimistic premise, Pim and Charlie tend to find themselves in unsettling situations. Like trying to help a cancelled TV star who's addicted to murder, assisting a washed-up video game mascot who dances online to afford creamed corn, or fighting the daughter of the devil because she's sucking their boss's soul. Smiling Friends catches you off guard without resorting to gross-out humor. The pilot sets the tone brilliantly for the rest of the show. The episode begins by telling us there's a young man who's not feeling great, and they want the Smiling Friends to cheer him up. They go and meet the young man's mother. Charlie is apprehensive, while Pim's excited to do some good. And then,
oh my god! Whoa, 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 oh my god. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
We learn he's actually a depressed middle-aged divorcee named Desmond, who's holding a gun to his head. The gun is a hilarious visual gag, whether he's on a roller coaster, at the dinner table, or in the arcade, Desmond just stands there holding the gun. I wouldn't say it's the most subtle gag, but the writers teach you that jokes need to be observed instead of just told. The pilot eases us into the show's use of different animation types. When Pim tries to show Desmond how to make friends at a party, he's berated by an odd-looking rotoscoped human.
Are you f***ing here, man? You're so old.
Rotoscoping is when they trace over live-action footage, so his movements are strangely fluid and lifelike, in contrast to how we've seen the animation thus far, amping up the comedy in his delivery. While all of this is happening, Alan, another employee of the Smiling Friends, is kidnapped by these little creatures called Bibblies, leading to the office being overrun. The way the Bibblies move is erratic and messy, but it had me giggling. The two storylines culminate beautifully when Desmond shoots the shit out of a Bibbly, and now filled with a renewed sense of purpose, he starts a pest extermination business. Smiling Friends is a show that uses any tool it can to make you laugh. Even the pilot's premiere is a gag, shadow dropping as an April Fool's prank in 2020. The pilot sets the tone going forward, but also showcases the show's sense of humor and how it tells jokes. Smiling Friends humor relies on wacky situations just as much as the animation or the banter between the characters. It's the characters' realistic reactions to those situations that make so many of the gags hit home. There's many great examples of this, like the season 1 episode Enchanted Forest, when Charlie and Pim are kidnapped by a witch. While being tied up in a boiling pot, they notice how good the witch is at cutting onions, and nonchalantly discuss it.
She's actually pretty good at that.
Yeah, she's good.
Or in Charlie, Pim, and Bill versus the Alien. The episode ends with a hilarious riff when Pim and Charlie find out the Earth is flat and surrounded by a dome.
This can't be real.
I need to sit down.
This can't.
Pim, we need to take this to the grave. We cannot tell anybody. This changes literally this changes everything.
Nah, I know.
And the season 2 finale, where Charlie keeps bringing up how he thinks his boss is very funny and how he should be doing stand-up. But he promptly gets shut down by Alan.
Probably not
Like,
stand-up, but
yeah.
No, he is funny.
Yeah, try to stand up, but yeah.
No, it's harder.
Charlie, specifically, tends to initiate these conversations and has some of the funniest moments. Like in Charlie Dies and Doesn't Come Back. While being berated by the souls of the undead in hell, he takes the time to comfort one who couldn't think of anything to say.
I'm sorry, I couldn't think of anything to say.
Nah, there's no pressure, man. It's all good. You didn't have to say anything.
That episode contains one of my favorite jokes in the show. When Charlie meets his grandmother in hell, she explains to him why she's there.
I cursed and said, damn, in 1958 when I saw your grandfather being shot in the head by that rotten burglar.
Charlie's reaction,
That seems a little bit unreasonable. I don't think you should be in hell for that.
and then continuing to talk to her so nonchalantly, is hysterical. It's reactions like these that really make the jokes hit. Where other shows you would be expecting a more dramatic response, the humor is in the fact that Charlie rarely matches another character's energy. The most prominent example of this awkward banter has to be the Smiling Friends go to Brazil. The entire episode is a one take of the Smiling Friends walking around the airport in Brazil, discussing the fact that Pim forgot to book them a hotel room. It's an 11-minute back and forth between the friends as they try to pin the blame on each other, awkwardly order french fries and water. Then they call the boss, under the guise of getting his advice, while subtly seeing if he'll pay for them. It's a great example of awkward comedy, and I'd recommend anyone to watch this episode before booking a trip to Brazil during Mardi Gras. The banter feels messy and real. It's not the punchlines or shouting, it's the characters reacting badly to unfortunate situations. The comedy isn't obvious. It's hidden in the pauses and reactions, waiting for you to notice. The contrast between that, the wacky animation style, and the bizarre setting they find themselves in results in some side-splitting comedy. Smiling Friends isn't afraid to make a joke you might miss. Not because you don't have a high enough IQ, but because you're not chronically online. References to older memes, online content creators, and past scandals. My favorite example is the boss asking the guys to help cheer up Jared Fogle.
The one, the only, Jared Fogle!
They do briefly touch on why Jared Fogle is a monster, and why this is not a situation Pim and Charlie want to find themselves in. The funniest part of the entire joke is the reveal. The way Mr. Boss impatiently exclaims Jared Fogle, leading into Pim and Charlie's completely shocked reaction.
That was too far, man. Jared Fogle is a genuine fucking menace. Absolutely not. I did not like that.
I screamed at that joke. I genuinely thought they were gonna do it. However, when trying to convince some of my friends to watch the show, I showed them this clip and they had no reaction. When I explained who Jared Fogle was, they laughed, but the reaction wasn't the same as mine. It is a niche joke. The only reason I know who he is because of South Park. But despite me seeming insane during that interaction, it taught me that Zach and Michael aren't just writing jokes for an audience, they're doing it for themselves. If you get the joke, then this show is for you. And if you don't, the show doesn't slow down to catch you up. That's the reward of paying attention. Another joke like this is in the episode Gwimbly, Definitive Remastered Enhanced Extended Edition with DX 4K Anniversary Director's Cut, where the titular Gwimbly, the washed-up video game mascot I mentioned earlier, is at the grave of his sidekick, and while grieving, he says,
And I'm gonna say what nobody else is willing to say. America has a fucking fat law crisis.
I lost it. And it's another joke I caught because of South Park. The reference is just sitting there, waiting for the right viewer to catch it. The laugh feels earned because you had to connect the dots yourself. One of Smiling Friends' biggest reference sources is internet celebrities appearing in mixed media cameos, like the Nostalgia Critic as Daniel the Demon Slayer.
Hello, I'm Daniel the Demon Slayer. I slay demons so you don't have to.
Or Joel Haver appearing as the brother of Professor Psychotic in a rotoscoped performance. The funniest to me was Mike Bocchetti appearing as the president in the season 2 episode Mr. President, where he's just a live-action person inserted into the world of Smiling Friends. The use of mixed media results in a lot of great gags, not just with cameos, but with characters like 3D Squelton, the stop-motion aliens, and of course Gwimbly. Smiling Friends uses these other styles to heighten the show, but also helps set a tone immediately for a character in a fun way. The aliens and forest demons being stop motion makes them appear unnatural on screen. Joel Haver being rotoscoped gives him a strangely normal guy feel compared to the other characters. Then having a live action character in the scene makes me assume they're more important, even if they're not. It's silly, but it does a great job of setting up the characters visually and setting the show apart from other animated series. Smiling Friends has a diverse way of telling jokes. But you know what else has jokes? My comedy and crime miniseries, Midlands Mayhem. You can check it out on midlandsmayhem.com, and please do. It's got 5 episodes. I put a lot of work into it. Please watch it. The short runtime of these episodes play to their benefit. It's a tight 11 minutes, so the jokes never overstay their welcome. If a joke stops being funny, Smiling Friends moves on, much like Prime SpongeBob. Beyond knowing when to drop a gag, they also pack in as many gags as possible in the 11 minutes. For example, they'll tell jokes through character movement or background animation. One of the most prominent being Glep, the 4th Smiling Friend. He isn't usually the focus of an episode. His appearances are mainly for background gags. A recurring one is Glep's tablet, which he's using to watch some weird YouTube videos or look at graphs. While it's not laugh out loud hilarious, it's a nice touch that rewards scanning the frame to see what's happening. Another zany gag is how the end credits of each episode feature in loving memory tribute to people who don't exist, like Squibbly D, Squibbly Doo, who sadly passed away in 2015, or characters in Universe. Rest in peace, Smormu, who sadly died after becoming the 5th smiling friend. The show has post-credit scenes, which pay off jokes they set up in the main plot. In Who Violently Murdered Simon S. Salty, the Sentry egg asks to be buried in China, and Charlie sarcastically responds,
Oh yeah, we will definitely go to China to bury you, man.
Then in the post-credit scene, they actually do. It's the misdirect of Charlie's delivery sounding sarcastic that makes this really land. They pay off a joke that you thought was already finished. By doing this, the writers are getting you to engage with the show and hang around after the credits just for another laugh. In The Magical Red Jewel, aka Tyler Gets Fired, Pim is asked by Mr. Boss to accompany him to the country of Spamtopia, because he can translate their language. As they enter the city, a song explains the rules of Spamtopia. Don't look anyone in the eyes. When they finally meet Mr. Jester, the challenge is obvious. His entire head is one giant eyeball. They never point this out in dialogue, but the visual alone is already funny. Pim eventually slips and looks at him in the eye, which leads Mr. Jester to swap his jester hat for an executioner's hood and start killing people. Then Pim asks to speak to the leader of Spamtopia, and the hat is immediately changed into a crown. Finally, when Pim recites a childhood prayer in Spanish, Mr. Jester reveals he was Pim's old pen pal, and his hat turns into a little boy's baseball cap. The brilliance is that no one ever comments on these hat changes. They just keep happening in the background of the scene, waiting for you to notice. That's why it lands so well. It's a gag you discover for yourself, not one the show tells you to laugh at. That's exactly why laugh tracks have never worked for me. Even if a show has great jokes, the second it tells me when to laugh, it feels like cheating. Smiling Friends trusts you enough to spot the gag for yourself. The Yeti from the season 2 finale is another great example of character movement as a gag. Pim and Charlie leave a snowman on his property. The Yeti returns after the snowman screams, scaring his wife and kids. The entire time the Yeti speaks, his fingers are moving erratically, pointing at Pim and Charlie, mimicking walking, and just contorting in funny ways. The best part about this is no one mentions it, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. Another one is the UFO episode with the conspiracy theorists. The way he moves and points at the characters is just hysterical. Mip in the Enchanted Forest episode has some hilarious character animation. Mip's design is based on the 1977 Lord of the Rings animated film, which only adds to the jokes embedded in his character acting. During the scene of him and Charlie talking at the campfire, he keeps his eyes locked on the ground while rubbing it, trying to play it cool, and the perspective change or foreshortening on his fingers when he points to Charlie acts as a punchline set up by his attempt at nonchalance. Also, the witch in this episode flying away. Now I can't even possibly conceive of talking about the animation being funny without discussing Mr. Boss.
Yep, guess time. Oogaloo!
Mr. Boss is one of the silliest characters in the show. He rarely breaks into casual conversation the way the other characters do, and remains quite heightened every episode. The way he moves, his expressions, and the creepy little way he stands in the background is just wonderful. One of the best gags is him trying to explain paperclips to Alan. He points at Alan with a giant foreshortened finger and bends it in the wrong way as a gag, pretending he doesn't know what paperclips are called. Another one is when he fully contorts his face into a dog and whimpers at Charlie to get him to do his job. The Spamtopia episode is filled with moments like this. On the drive up, he spits out the car on this low-angle shot. His face when he explains what he needs Pim to do in the restaurant, and one of my favorites is how he looks trying to avoid eye contact while sitting at the table. The characters in Smiling Friends are incredibly expressive, move erratically, and it is some of the most ludicrous animation you'll see on TV. A lot of this will be missed if you aren't paying attention or looking at the other characters. Even when they aren't the main focus in a scene, this, coupled with its nonchalant banter during wacky situations and specific obscure references, make you feel like you earned the joke. To sum up why I love Smiling Friends, it's really funny. But the jokes in Smiling Friends feel rewarding, whether it's a visual gag, an obscure reference, or just a callback to a throwaway line. Smiling Friends builds jokes in ways many other shows don't. It trusts you with its humor, but isn't reliant on references with how many jokes they fit into their tight runtime. That's why Smiling Friends rewards you for paying attention. So hopefully you weren't watching on your phone, because you'd be missing half the fun.